Hello, welcome to Inside City Council. Today we are joined by Councilman Bill Greenlee, Majority Deputy Whip. How you doing, sir?
Very good.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We've been dealing with an issue for a very long time.
Yes.
Paid sick leave, earned paid sick leave.
Earned paid sick leave.
You've been dealing with this for quite some time over several election cycles. Talk to us about how this bill started and where it stands now.
Actually, a group came to us who has been advocating for paid sick leave across the country. They first went to then Councilman, now Council President Darrell Clark, and he and I introduced the first bill back, I believe it was 2008, so it's been a while. It sat for a little while we tried to garner support and fine-tune the bill a little bit, and we've made numerous changes over the years. We did pass it one time in 2011 by a very close 9-8 vote. I reintroduced it now as the main sponsor since the Council President has other duties. And we just passed the bill again by a more clear majority. So we think we're on our way to finally having paid sick leave, earned paid sick leave in Philadelphia.
Now, if I could take you back a little bit,
Sure.
The reason why we're here again is because the mayor vetoed it the first time around.
Yes.
And then in the attempt to try to override the veto, there weren't enough votes.
Correct.
What's changed in the landscape from that point when you couldn't override a veto to now when you have more votes in the initial passing and now facing another possible veto? What's changed in the climate politically here in council?
Well, a few things have happened in City Council. First, there's 6 different members than were there the last time we had a vote. And there's been some change just around the country which would influence us here in Philadelphia, I believe. More cities have passed the law. More cities are pending, including New York City, are right now, as we speak, are very close to passing the law. So I think more members are seeing that, and thus there is more evidence that this is a positive for both employees and employers. And I think that's very important, that it is not just a pro-employee bill. It has shown around the country that it actually can save money for businesses, because people, in the long run, if you give them 1 or 2 days off, paid sick days, then they might not lose a whole week, because as you know, oftentimes if you force yourself to come in sick, you wind up being more ill for a longer period of time.
The way the votes have broken down, they've been very close, very tight. Obviously, the way City Council is made up, that means that it's bipartisan resistance. What has the resistance been? What have been the detractors?
I think the biggest thing is the business community, Chamber of Commerce, and unfortunately also the mayoral administration has fought really hard and said how negative this would be for business, that we would lose businesses, that others would not come into the city. We feel there's no evidence to support that contention, but I understand as council members, either in their district or at large, hearing from businesses, hearing that kind of concern would have legitimate questions, that need to be answered. We think for the most part we've answered them, but I understand that this is the kind of issue that is probably never going to pass 17-0. There's going to be people with differences of opinion, and that's fine. But we're heartened by the fact that the support keeps growing here in City Council, and it keeps growing citywide. More and more people are realizing that it is just a fair, reasonable, healthy thing to do, to give people a few paid sick days a year.
There are examples of success around the country. Cities like San Francisco have been able to do it. Can you talk a little bit about that?
San Francisco has had this law the longest. They've had it since 2006. And interestingly enough, some of the same concerns were raised by business people back then in San Francisco. They're being raised now and have been raised in Philadelphia. So this is nothing new. And it's natural that the business community would be concerned about another law mandating some action by them. So we get that. But San Francisco has shown that it does not have the negative effect. In fact, there's the Restaurant Association, and if you're familiar with San Francisco, like Philadelphia, it's a big restaurant city. They called the Golden Gate Association, was vehemently against the bill in 2006. Now they have gone on record saying it has had little or no impact on their business. And San Francisco is actually rated the 3rd best city for business in the world by Price Waterhouse. Now, if paid sick leave was such a detriment to business, I don't see how that could happen. And as I said, since then, Seattle, Washington, D.C., the entire state of Connecticut has passed such a law. And the regulations in each one are a little bit different. Ours is, I guess, I would call sort of in the middle. But it's shown that you can establish an earned paid sick day program in cities, and they can work for the betterment of everybody.
There was criticism from the opponents of the bill dealing with using San Francisco as an example, saying that San Francisco is in a better economic state to be able to try something like that, as opposed to Philadelphia, who is in hard times economically. What do you say to folks who say that?
You know, the critics that say San Francisco is so much better than Philadelphia economically, San Francisco, every city is different. Every city has its pluses and minuses. I think sometimes they fail to point out that San Francisco has some financial burdens for businesses that Philadelphia does not. Their minimum wage is significantly higher. Every worker has to have health care and have had to have it for years. So there's negatives there too, you know, and they have a suburban area too, which would love to take some of those jobs. So where every city is different, and I guess San Francisco is maybe a little bit more white collar and maybe a little bit better economically, I don't think it's nearly as different as they make it out to be, as the critics make it out to be. And I think sometimes one of the things that has concerned me, and again, I understand opposition, but the leaders of the city, the business community, and even some political leaders that have knocked Philadelphia and say, well, we can't do something that other cities have done. And my answer back always is, why not? Why shouldn't we be able to do, we're the 5th largest city in the country. Why can't we do what cities like San Francisco and Seattle have done? You know, and just as we're speaking, Portland just passed their law. So, I mean, we can, I don't see why we can't do it. I think sometimes Philly has a negative attitude about themselves, and that's a shame. You know, that's a shame. And I think I have stated many times that I think one of the things that hurts businesses in the city is not some of these regulations that they complain about, but the business leaders themselves talk down about the city so much, and that's a shame. And I think we need to take a positive attitude. And I looked at how San Francisco did it, and they put it in a much more positive light. You know, and I think that's why it's working, and that's why I think it can work here.
One of the issues with this bill seems to be similar to some of the other pro-worker legislation that's been passed prior, things like raising the minimum wage, that kind of thing. Do you notice a similarity in some of the resistance to this bill? Absolutely.
I think a lot of the resistance is when you look at a little history, some of the words that are used are almost incredibly similar to some of the criticisms of laws that right now everybody takes for granted. Minimum wage, child labor laws, Social Security,
weekends,
workplace safety laws, all that. Yeah, they were all at that point dismissed as unfunded mandates, interfering with businesses, hurting the free enterprise system, all those kind of phrases. And as I said, right now, I think those things I just mentioned are taken as, just a matter of fact. I believe in 5-10 years, earned paid sick leave will be taken as a matter of fact in a lot of this country.
When you look at the guts of the bill, a lot of times people hear about a bill, they don't necessarily know all the details, everything that's in it. For folks that are unfamiliar with the details of the bill, what are some of the things that you're most proud of that are in there?
Well, let me just say, one of the things I'm most proud of about this bill is that we sat down with the business community, many meetings, took a lot of grief, but worked a bill out that we think is fair to everybody. We didn't come in and basically say, this is our bill and we're not going to touch it and it's my way or the highway kind of argument. We have really worked with businesses, and I think that's the way you get things done. I think that's how you get constructive legislation done, by hearing all sides. We think we have found a fair balance to protect employees, for larger businesses, 20 employees or over, a maximum of 7 paid sick days a year. For businesses 6 to 19 employees, a maximum of 4 a year. And we understand that really small businesses, which we call mom and pop businesses, maybe can't handle this law, so we have exempted them because most of those oftentimes are employed by family members, that kind of thing. So they work out their own situation. So, and there's lots of other things that we listen to over time with the business community. And again, we have tried to accommodate the best we can, but still have a law that actually has some teeth to it.
Now, in some of the testimony that's been given while you've been working on passing this bill, there have been comments made by folks who talk about being fearful of employers terminating them if they don't show up, or trying to take that day, and an employer saying, well, if you take this day, you'll have to stay home. Is there protection for employees?
There's a particular phrase or clause in the bill that protects employees from any kind of retaliatory action by their employer. So we hope that wouldn't happen, but we know we live in the real world and it could. And so any retaliatory action taken for a person taking sick leave, can be action taken against the employer by the city. And I want to point out that goes both ways, and that's one of the things we worked on. There's also a clause saying that an employer has every right to take action against employee if that employee uses the sick time for reasons other than delineated in the bill. So again, we're trying to reach that balance to be fair to both, but be protective of both.
Councilman, when you look at how the bill is structured, you've passed it now. You're still concerned about a possible veto coming from the mayor's office. Can you talk about how that landscape looks for you, and at this point what it would mean if the mayor does veto it and it ends up back in your hands again? What's the process at that point?
Well, I am concerned about what action the mayor might take on this bill. I feel better because we had a much clearer majority than we had last time, but the administration has been adamantly opposed to this bill. I'm disappointed that, and like as I've said previously, that we have tried to sit down and have dialogue with everyone. They've not attempted to have any dialogue with me or any other supporters of this bill that I know of. So, I mean, we have to be prepared that it could be another veto. I'm going to try to meet with the mayor. I'm going to talk to him, hope that we can reach a meeting of the minds on this. Because it's clear that not only the majority of council, but the majority of citizens of Philadelphia think earned paid sick leave is the right way to go. But if not, if he does veto it, it'll come back to city council, and we're prepared to try to override that veto. I'll be sitting down with other members and trying to convince them that we need to move forward. Councilman Wilson Good, I think, has put it very well. If we're going to be a progressive city, the people that we need to take care of the most are the people that need help the most. And that working class group of people go out every day and work. We're not giving them any handouts here. We're just trying to help them be able to maintain their health and maintain their family's health.
When you look at possibly trying to change some minds, how does that work just legislatively? You know, not necessarily specifically what you're going to say to folks, but when you try to come up with strategies to change minds who have voted against you twice in some cases, what are some of the things that you go through and think about when you're trying to reconnect with some of your other council members to change those minds?
I think one of the things when we try to convince council members to see our way is first ask them, okay, what are your main concerns? Why do you think this bill will not work for Philadelphia? And sometimes, and I don't mean this critically, maybe they don't totally understand everything that's in there, because the business community and some other critics, I think, have overblown some of the issues in there or misstated even. So I think that's one of the first things, to say, okay, council member such and such, what's your concerns here? Maybe I can answer them. Maybe I can explain why that concern has been addressed in other cities and has not been a concern there and should not be here. You know, that kind of thing. So it's a one-on-one kind of let's talk. And the one good thing about city council, there's only 17 of us here. We all interact with each other. Doesn't mean we always agree, and maybe once in a while we even annoy each other. But I think we have a good relationship. So I'm looking forward to sitting down with everybody. And if that time comes, and I tend to be an optimist. I hope that the mayor might decide to not veto it, or at least let it become law without his signature, and we can move on, because we have a lot of things to do here in City Council. We got a very busy budget season, got a lot of things to do with taxes and schools and crime and a whole lot of other things. And we could put this to rest right now, because again, the clear majority of City Council has spoken. And I hope that the mayor and City Council on this one can have a meeting of the minds, and let's move on to all the other issues we have to deal with in Philadelphia.
Talk about the option that the mayor has to allow it to go into law without signing. I think that's one of the things that sometimes people don't realize is an option.
Yeah, the mayor kind of has a middle ground. He has three options. One is to sign the bill, which makes it law, and that's the cleanest thing, I guess. He also could veto it, which means he rejects it, sends it back to council, and then council would have to have a 2/3 majority to override the mayor's veto, and it would be then law. The middle ground he has is to kind of show his concern with the bill, but not to totally reject it. And what he would do is send it back to city council without his signature. So he shows concern, but he is not totally rejecting the bill. And he has done that on other occasions. So that is not unprecedented by any stretch of the imagination, you know. And I know that's going to be a difficult, convinced job to do for the mayor on this. I understand, his position too. Again, I repeat, I wish he'd talked to me more on this, but we're hoping that maybe a few of us can convince him that maybe at least letting the bill become law is the prudent thing for everybody.
There was a good number of people who came out to voice their opinion. It seems like a good number of folks who showed up were very much in favor of this bill passing. For those folks who came and those folks who we see in polls who seem to favor it, is there a place for them to have their voice heard during this process while the mayor waits to either veto it or send it back without his signature in that, or even in the process, if he does veto it, for city council to reconsider it? Is there space for the public to let the politicians know how they feel and even maybe themselves move how it goes?
The feeling of the public, I think, is always important because, look, we're answerable to the public all the time, but certainly when we run for election. And the public now, in this new media days, have many ways of getting in touch with the mayor and us, between the old-fashioned way of writing or phoning, or they can text, they can fax, they can tweet, they can do a whole lot of other things to communicate. And trust me, I know this group of people, they're very passionate about it, and they're not getting paid very much. Most of them aren't getting paid at all, so they're doing it because they feel it's the right thing to do. A lot of them, it might benefit them personally because they could get some paid sick days, but a lot are doing it because they believe it's the right thing to do. They're not high-paid lobbyists, but they care, and they are trying to mobilize as many people around the city to care because, as you stated, every poll shows the vast majority of people support earned paid sick leave. The problem is, and we understand this, people have their own lives to live. So as much as it might hurt our ego sometimes, we know a lot of people in the city of Philadelphia are not watching what we do every day and maybe not aware of what we do every day. And between ourselves, the council members that support this bill, and the activists who have been working so hard on this bill for years, we're going to try to communicate that and hope that they communicate their feelings to the mayor and then, need be, back again to city council.
Of the people that you've heard from, either in your offices or in open session, have there been any stories that kind of stuck with you? Like, this is one of the things that keeps me going. This is one of the reasons why it's important for me to get this bill through. Over
time, I've heard many stories. One of them, a lot of them come from restaurant workers. Mm-hmm. And that's disturbing in a number of ways, which I'll get into. But it's that they feel forced to come in, not just feel, they're told they have to come into work or they could risk losing their job. And when a restaurant worker comes in sick, it's more than just how it affects him or her. It's obviously their coworkers that they interact with, and then obviously the general public. If somebody is ill and handling food, that could be the sandwich that you or I eat, and we could spread that to somebody. So, and I don't think we're being overly dramatic there. I think if you remember over the last couple flu epidemics that we had, one of the big things that was put on TV, on posters, on the radio, was if you are sick with the flu, stay home. And unfortunately for 180,000 workers in Philadelphia, 180,000, they have the option of staying home, but then they don't get paid. And a lot of particularly restaurant workers and other people in healthcare, the healthcare industry, the hospitality industry, are the ones that interact with the public sometimes the most. We got a kind of a disturbing letter from a nurses association that were railing against the bill, that they need their people to go out there and take care of their patients. Well, think about that. If their workers are sick they're taking care of patients that probably already have a health issue of some sort. It just doesn't make sense to me. But what is heart-wrenching sometimes to think that people feel that they have to force themselves into work. And again, we've heard it many times. It's the Restaurant Association, the people who oversee restaurants around the city, actually around the country, kind of poo-poo that, and that's disturbing because they're basically saying dozens of people are not telling the truth, and I don't believe that. I believe there are restaurants, and not all certainly, but there are restaurants and other businesses that force their workers in, and workers feel that they could very well lose their job if they don't come in, and that's. And actually, I've heard people that have lost their jobs because of that. Now, there could be legal angles for that, but again, these people are working class, oftentimes low income people. They don't have a lot of resources to fight. They just need to oftentimes just go out and get another job because that's their only option.
So it would seem that this is kind of like a three-tiered problem that it addresses as far as economics, public health, and child welfare. Do you see that way?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, it seems like I'm criticizing the administration a lot, but the administration just chose at the public hearing that we had before the health committee, I may add, to just send the commerce director and just talk about economics. And I'm the first one to say economics are a key issue of this bill. I would add economics for both the employer and the employee, but certainly economics are an issue. But health is absolutely an issue. The bill is actually titled the Healthy Families and Workplace Initiative. It's about health. And health is an issue the administration talks a lot about in other venues. So we feel that, that we really have to emphasize and you mentioned child care issues, because one of the things the bill does is allow you